There's a particular trap that catches people like us. And I say us because if you're watching this, you probably know exactly what I mean. You're the person who needs to understand the underlying mechanisms before you can act, who reads 3 books on negotiation tactics before you ask for a raise, who spends weeks researching the optimal workout routine instead of just going to the gym. We are the people who, far too often, mistake intellectual clarity for progress. In Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, Persig talks about the South Indian monkey trap. You drill a hole in a coconut, put rice inside, and wait. The monkey reaches in, grabs the rice, but then can't pull its fist back out through the hole. The monkey could escape by letting go of the rice, but it won't. It'll sit there trapped by its own grip while the hunters approach. I think about that monkey a lot, particularly when I catch myself reading a 4th article on habit formation instead of just flossing my teeth. The problem, all of this analysis feels productive. Your brain gives you the same little dopamine hits for understanding something as it does for doing something. Maybe even bigger hits, honestly. Understanding is clean and controllable, and it happens entirely in your head, where you're safe. Action is messy. Action equals other people, and uncontrollable variables, and the possibility of looking stupid. Of course, your brain would rather stay in theory mode. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to stop thinking and just do things, man. And that advice usually comes from people who have never experienced analysis paralysis, and it's about as helpful as telling a depressed person to cheer up. I've been that, and I've been there, and it doesn't help. Our analytical approach has real value. Understanding systems and mechanisms and underlying principles actually does help us act more effectively when we eventually act. The trouble starts when understanding becomes a substitute for the action rather than preparation for it. There are aspiring writers who've read everything about story structure and haven't written a complete story. Entrepreneurs who can discourse brilliantly on business models but haven't made their first sale. People with encyclopedic knowledge of social dynamics who still can't make small talk at parties. The model gets more and more refined while the territory remains unexplored. I think the issue is that we treat these two things as if they exist on the same spectrum. Like you do some analysis and then some action and then more analysis and then more action, and you can slide back and forth between them smoothly. But they're actually different modes of being. Analysis happens in the realm of abstraction and infinite possibility. Action happens in the realm of the concrete and the constraint. You can't smoothly interpolate between them. There's a gap you have to jump, and jumping is scary. Once you act, you've collapsed the wave function. You're no longer dealing with the perfect platonic ideal of what you could do. You're stuck with the messy reality of what you actually did. Your beautiful model meets the territory, and it turns out to be wrong in 11 ways you didn't anticipate. And this is uncomfortable for people who pride themselves on being right. People like us. Perhaps, we don't fear action so much as we fear feedback. As long as our model stays in our head, it can be perfect. The moment we test it against reality, we have to confront our wrongness. And for highly analytical people, being wrong feels like a moral failing rather than a normal part of learning. I've noticed a few things that seem to help. First, you have to get comfortable with the idea that your model will always be incomplete and will always be partially wrong. Always. You could spend your entire life refining your understanding of how to write a novel, and you still learn more from writing one bad novel than from all that study. The territory is infinitely richer than any map could capture. And this isn't a bug, it's a feature. If the map could be as detailed as the territory, it would be the territory and thus useless as a map. Second, you need to deliberately practice the jump between analysis and action by setting very clear boundaries on it. I'll research workout routines for 2 hours and then I'm going to the gym regardless of whether I feel ready. I'll think about what I want to say in this email for 10 minutes and then I'm sending it, whether or not it's perfect. The analytical part gets its time, but then you act anyway. You're training yourself to be okay with the gap. Third, and this is harder, you have to learn to metabolize feedback differently. When reality contradicts your model, it's not a failure signal, it's data. Neutral, immutable data. That's the whole point of making models in the first place, to test them against the world and update them. But you can only get that data by acting. The model serves the movement, not the other way around. I still build systems. I still love understanding how things work. I still spend probably too much time reading about things instead of doing them. But I'm trying to hold it all more loosely now. The map is useful precisely because it's not the territory. And I'm learning that sometimes you need to crumple up your beautiful map and just start walking. And you'll probably go in the wrong direction at first. You'll definitely look silly. Your model will turn out to be wrong in ways you should have anticipated and ways you couldn't have. But at least you'll be moving. At least you'll be generating the level and category of knowledge that only comes from contact with the real world. The monkey can let go of the rice any time it wants.